Hi, Frida. So we want to welcome you tonight. This is Bible Geography 3, The Life of Christ. This will be lesson 1 tonight. So this is our introductory class to a new semester. So good to have everyone. So our Heritage Discipleship Institute, we've been doing for many years. What we ask a suggested tuition. There's nothing mandated, but whatever the Lord allows you to do is great. Of course, the book is yours, so you will buy the book. And we definitely encourage you, if you don't have the book, to get it, because just as we go through this, it's very much geared to using the Holman Bible Atlas. And even for those who are live streaming it, get the book, because you'll not really be able to follow us on a live stream without the Holman Bible Atlas. And then we do suggest for the class $50 for the tuition of the whole semester, which is not much at all, really, and basically is paying for some of the notes and printing costs and things. And then if you're taking the second class, $25 just for the second class. So $75 for both classes is a suggested amount. And if it's any problem, it's not a problem. We're just glad that you're here and that you want to learn God's word. So we welcome you to this class tonight. We're excited always to begin a new semester. And it's good to have a lot of our regular students continuing on. And it's always easier to start a class than to finish the class. And speaking of finishing the class, I have certificates of those who did finish the class last year. So Mondello, why don't you come on up here and you can get your certificate. Okay, and Frida, okay, yep. And we're so happy that you guys did do great on the final exam. And Mondello took the Bible Geography class, but Frida has double certificate for the Acts and the Bible Geography. And great. And some of you also took the class, but you didn't quite finish the final. But that's okay. That's all right. Keep on, man. Yeah. Okay. I know. Hey, it's not easy to do. It's not easy. Okay, so as we begin tonight, let's have a word of prayer and ask the Lord's blessing on our time in our institute this semester. And I'm going to ask Sister Ellie if you could please pray for us tonight.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your loving kindness and your desire to have relationship with us, and your desire for us to know of you more intimately. And thank you so much for this class that Pastor so painstakingly prepare and teaching us for these many, many years. And we thank you for this opportunity to come and get together and study your word and know more about you, Lord God. So please give us open mind and understanding as we are being taught this evening. And Father, I pray that you would enable us with your power and grace to walk worthy of your name and apply whatever we learn, and to bring you glory in our every day, every arena in our lives. Father, we thank you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay, so as we begin this class, please look at your syllabus just on page 1 and then page 2. So the class schedule is pretty simple here. Keep in mind that we will be in Grenada on February 17th, so we will not have a class on that Monday. Other than that, there will be a class every Monday from now until April 27th. So the time will go quickly, and we'll be out of here before most schools are out. I think the graduations are just right after that. So the memory verses that I have for this class, at least right now, are Matthew chapter 2, verse 23, and we'll look at them. And then John chapter 4, verse 4, Mark chapter 7, verse 24. And then the quizzes are also on those days that you see the highlighted. We'll have 3 quizzes and then the final exam. So that's also there. Okay, now, so as we begin this class, just to give you an idea of how geography can really assist us in our understanding of the New Testament, go to Luke chapter 6, verse 17. Luke chapter 6 and verse 17. And just notice the geography of this particular verse. And if you're reading it and you don't have any sense of the geography, you would miss the understanding of the verse. So in Luke chapter 6, verse 17, Jenny, could I ask you to read that verse for us, please?
And he came down with them and stood in the plain, and the company of his disciples, and a great multitude of people out of all Judea and Jerusalem, and from the sea coast of Tyre and Sidon, which came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases.
Okay, so this is talking about Jesus Christ. He was in a particular place, but where? So then it says that people came to hear him. From where? Where did they come to hear him? It says from Judea and Jerusalem. So now just for fun here as we begin, let's go to a map. Why don't we go to map? You could go to map on page 224. That would be just as good as any map. Actually, 225, page 225, right across the page. Map 110. You just look there real quickly. So you could easily see where. Now, so where was Jesus when he was teaching this? He was in Galilee. He was in the region of Galilee. So look, find where Galilee is in the map on that page 225. It's the orange area. You see where it says Upper Galilee. And you'll know that Upper Galilee is always in the region of the Sea of Galilee. So you see where Galilee is? And where was Jesus's hometown or home base of ministry? Remember, he got kicked out of his hometown of Nazareth. And then where did he center his ministry from? Out of what town? Does anybody know? Capernaum. So he was probably in that region around there in Galilee, perhaps around Capernaum. So do you see Capernaum right at the north part of the Sea of Galilee? That's where Capernaum. So that's around where Jesus was. He was in the Galilean area. So where do people come to Jesus from? Where does it say there? From where? Okay, and so to get to Galilee from there, how would most of the Jewish people travel? They wouldn't just go straight through Samaria. They would do what? They would go, you see that green line that goes around Samaria? They would cross the Jordan River, go up through Perea, and then they would go up into Galilee from there. So they were coming all the way from Jerusalem. And it says Judea, so that whole region of Judea, Jerusalem being the capital of Judea. And then where else did they come? What does it say in Luke 6:17? From the region of where? Tyre and Sidon. And where's Tyre and Sidon? It says from the sea coast. So if you look on the map, Tyre is above Galilee, and even a little above this map, perhaps. Actually, if you go back to map on page 220, map 107, you'll see Tyre and Sidon. So they were coming from Judea in the south, and then they were coming from Tyre and Sidon, way in the north, definitely more Gentile regions as well. So you had Jewish people predominantly in Judea coming here, and then you had maybe Jews, but also Gentiles coming down from Tyre and Sidon into Galilee to hear Jesus Christ. So that's a lot of geography right there. And so that's just a little taste of how geography can help in our reading. So if you have a picture of that, at least, that they're coming from the north, they're coming from the south, converging there in Galilee. Okay, so let's go look at our notes, please.
Pastor, just a quick question. In 6:17, it says here, and he came down with them. Is the came down here refers to the plain? What was that when we say down or under? Yeah.
Well, he had gone up into a mountain to pray.
Oh, okay.
It says in verse 12. And that's when he had called his disciples, and then when he had come down with them, then he stood in the plain. So, okay, so let's look at page 3, please, in our notes. And we're just going to pick it right up here and look at our notes this evening. And some of this is going to be a review because some of you have not yet taken the class. So since this is going to be really, I believe this semester will be easier than the other semesters because it's going to really focus on the land of Israel. So whereas the other Bible geography classes focused on the whole Mesopotamian region as well as Egypt, but mostly this class, of course, the life of Christ focused right in Israel. So just as far as a little bit of review, what do we say? And we learned this in the very first semester, that Israel is the land between 3 continents. So as you look there at the map, you'll see that. So here is Israel, and it's in between Africa, Asia, and Europe. And it is, in a sense, the centerpiece of the world. And it was a place that people constantly traveled through. It was a land bridge between these 3 continents. It's a land size comparable to
New Jersey.
New Jersey, the armpit of America. That's right. Yet it's had untold impact upon the world. The land of Palestine, they say it's about 175 miles long. That's the blank there. 175 miles long, anywhere between 75 to 110 miles wide. Now, what's the western boundary of Israel? The western boundary, of course, would be the Mediterranean Sea. That's a natural boundary. The boundary of the north would be the towering peaks of Lebanon. To the east and the south, the boundaries were less absolute. You could say the Jordan River, but Israel was really given land beyond on the other side of the Jordan River. So the Jordan River is not a boundary for Israel in biblical times. But it's not so clear at times as well, depending on what enemies were moving in and moving out. There were roaming Arabs that often caused trouble for Israel. So now go back in your book, go back to page 13, please. And this is an important review as well. And you'll remember this if you took the first 2 semesters. What did we say? What are the 4 major geographic regions of Israel? What did we say they were? First, along the right, along the Mediterranean Sea is the coastal plain. That's number 1, the coastal plain. Number 2, this area that goes just to the west of the Jordan River, was called the what? The Western Mountains. You see that on the map? The Western Mountains. So locate that. The coastal plain kind of goes all the way up. The Western Mountains was very mountainous. I remember there was a deep drop off into the Jordan, and then the next is the Jordan Rift Valley. The Jordan Rift Valley. There was a deep drop off. So that here, of course, Jerusalem is a mountain, is built on a mountain, and then here's the Dead Sea, which is what? Geographically in the world, the Dead Sea is the what?
Lowest.
It's the lowest place on the whole earth as far as versus the sea level. So it's a tremendous drop off from the Western Mountains down into that Jordan Rift. And you see where the Arabah, which is south of the Dead Sea as well, that's a valley also. So the Jordan Rift Valley. And then on the other side of the Jordan River is called the what? What does it say? The Eastern Plateau. Okay, so those are the 4 major geographic regions. Let's say them together. You have the coastal plain, the Western Mountains, the Jordan Rift Valley, and the Eastern Plateau. Now, other than that, some of the important geographic areas that we have looked at in Israel are in your notes. What does it say? Letter C. What's the first one there? The what? The Jezreel Valley, which is right coming down from Mount Carmel, and almost, remember the pictures we showed the first semester, almost showed like an arrow. And why was this important? What has happened here many times in Megiddo? What has happened there many times? There have been what? Battles. How come? Why have so many battles been fought in Megiddo?
Because of its plain, like a wide area. No.
Intersection,
Because of what?
many crossroads.
Okay, it was the transportation hub. So it was about trade, it was about movement, and it was about controlling trade routes. Controlling trade routes means money. So let's see here. If you look on page, if you skip up, keep your finger on that page that you're on, but if you go to page 211, if you keep your finger though on that map that we're on right now, but on page 211, you see the major roads. And we also talked about this in the first semester. Remember what the major roads were? And so along here you have the coastal plain. And what was the major road that went up the coastal plain? It was called what? The International Coastal Highway. So locate that on map 103 on page 211. You see that? It's the red line going up, the red road going up the coastal plain. That's the International Coastal Highway. And where does it go through? Where does the International Coastal Highway go through? We're talking about Jezreel Valley now. And what's at the heart of the Jezreel Valley? Megiddo. And you see where that coastal highway goes right through Megiddo. So that was the natural crossing point. Again, because of the western mountains that come through Israel, it wasn't so easy to cut across Israel because of the mountains, but the Jezreel Valley made it lower, not mountainous, easier to cross from the coastal side of Israel than going up to Damascus and then going down into Mesopotamia, where the trade routes were. The other major highway. So you have the International Coastal Highway on the western side there, and then going east from there on the other side of the Jordan River. What was the name of that highway?
King's Highway.
The King's Highway. Do you see that? And if you extended this map down, remember where the King's Highway started? It started at the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aqaba. And so the ships would come up the Red Sea and they would dock there. And then they would move their goods all the way up this King's Highway again, and then into Mesopotamia, and that's how they would trade. And so that's where a lot of the battles were fought along these major roads because people wanted to control the trade routes. Okay, so the Jezreel Valley. Then going back to that map, what's another major area here? It's called there's Phelah right in here. This was like the lowlands. So here you have the coastal plain, and here are mountains. The Phelah, it's starting to go rise up, but it's still lowlands. And the Phelah. And so we talked as well about that being a key area in Israel. And then a third major region here is the Negev. I prefer to say it with a V. It does say Negev, but I think if you went to Israel, they call it Negev. And the Negev is translated in our Hebrew Bible as where? It's south. It's the south area of Israel. Okay, so that's just a quick review, and we will have to know that, and it's important to keep that in mind as we study the life of Christ, that geography. So the world of Christ into which he was born, what kind of world was he born into? Culturally, it was what kind of world? It was a Greek world. So that's number one. It was a Greek world. Greek culture permeated the world in which Christ lived, because who conquered? Who had conquered the world before Christ? Alexander. And Alexander spread his culture, the Hellenization of the world, as well as the Greek language into which the New Testament was written. But number two, who was the political power of the world into which Christ was born? Rome. So it was a Roman world, because Rome was the political power of the world. And we will see that. And you know that. And number three, religiously, Jesus Christ was born and lived his life in Israel. So it was what kind of world? Religiously, it was a Jewish world. That's number three at the top of page 4. So you could say, yes, it was a Greek world because of Greek culture. It was a Roman world because of Greek power. It was a Jewish world because of the Jewish religion and the law of God. Jesus Christ was born in a world where people hoped for the Messiah to come. And there he is. Okay, so now what we're going to do in this class is actually only going to cover 2 chapters in this book. The first chapter is chapter 17. So if you go there, please, to chapter 17. Now, we're skipping a few chapters from last semester into this. So if you're interested in the other chapters, you feel like you're missing chapter 16, go ahead and you can read it and study it all you like. Okay? And we might refer to it and we will go back to it, we will dip into it briefly. But so here's what I'm gonna basically do in this class. As we introduce and get into this semester, we're going to work through chapter 17 pretty much as it's here. And that the outline will reflect, chapter 17 in the book. But once we hit chapter 18, we're just going to kind of use it in a general way. And we're going to go through the life of Christ in his first year, his second year, his third year, to his last week, his Passion Week, to his last hours, and follow the steps of Jesus Christ. So we will not follow chapter 18, as we've been outlining it in other chapters. Okay. So chapter 17 gives us just some general things about the world of Christ, the world into which he was born. So we'll start here, and page 4 now, the Roman Empire during Jesus's ministry. Who was ruling first when Jesus was born? In the times of the birth of Christ, Luke chapter 2 verse 1 tells us who was ruling the world when Jesus was born. Caesar Augustus. No, he was really the first Roman Caesar. Jesus Christ was born in the fullness of times, the rising of this Roman Empire. Luke chapter 2, verse 1, it says, in those days, Caesar Augustus. So Caesar Augustus ruled from 27 AD to about 27 BC to 14 AD. Here is the Roman Empire. Now, this actually goes, I said we're going to dip back. Well, here we're going to dip back. This is map number 98. If you look there on page 196. So this gives you a picture of the Roman Empire in the days of Christ. And as you look at that map, what does the purple represent? What does the purple represent on this map? What does it say? Senatorial provinces. What does the orange represent? Imperial provinces. Now, if you're looking at this map and you see that, you should ask yourself what? Well, yeah, exactly. What does it mean? What's the difference? So you have these senatorial provinces and you have imperial provinces. Now, of course, this is the Roman Empire. Where was the heart of the Roman Empire? What country was the heart of the Roman Empire? That would be Italy, right? Well, look at Italy. What color was Italy? Purple. So the senatorial provinces were purple. It gives you a hint that perhaps those are the people who are more loyal naturally to Rome. They're going to follow the Roman leadership. Where is Israel? What color is Israel, the nation of Israel? So they're not part of the senatorial, they're part of the imperial. They're not purple. Well, why isn't Israel purple? You know, weren't they with the program? Well, so now, just real quick to break that down, if you look right below the map, you see where it says organization of an empire? And then down about the third line, it says the empire was divided into two types of provinces, imperial and senatorial. Imperial provinces most often were sources of potential trouble. So Israel was a place of what for Rome? Trouble. It's where difficulties were. And the ones who were assigned there may not really have wanted to be there. They were like looking at it as a stepping stone to a better place. Maybe I will go to a senatorial province eventually if I perform well here. So it was a place of potential trouble, but it was also a place of what? Then what does it say? Strategic importance. And Israel is always and always has been to this day, right? A place in the world of strategic importance. People want that land. So that's the difference there. And so Augustus controlled the imperial provinces by direct appointment. Now, we don't understand this so well. I certainly don't understand it so well. But the Roman Empire, there was a patronage system. And a lot of people served the Caesars or served those above them as patrons. And what is that? What's the idea there? The idea there is that I've worked myself into the favor of this person, and he's put me in this place. So now I'm going to do him a lot of favors when I'm there. And so that's kind of how it worked. So when we read here that Augustus controlled imperial provinces, such as Israel, by direct appointment, he put people in charge who were his patrons, people who had won his favor, and then, once they were in power, they would do things to show loyalty to the Caesar. They would build things and name it for him, or they would name cities after them and so forth. So like for example, if you look at page 199, just to give you a sense of the world that Jesus was born in as well, is it says there, Herod the Great. And then what does it say under Herod the Great? Who was he? He was a client king of Rome. He was Rome's choice to handle the affairs. He won the favor of successive Roman rulers for his unfailing loyalty to the interests of Rome. In return, Rome granted Herod that large territory. And so that's the system of patronage at work. And that's how Herod got to rule the world of Jesus Christ. He got favor with the Roman power. Okay, so that's just a little sense of the Roman Empire here. And that's why there was a lot of conflict within the nation of Israel as well. Because many did not want. Of course, they did not. Caesar was not their king. They were a proud nation of a history of kings, right? Of the line of David. And now just think of it. The man who could be king in the line of David, where is he and what is he doing? He's a carpenter, exactly. He's a carpenter. He's the line of the kings, and he's a simple carpenter in the backwoods region of Galilee, not even living in his hometown. And we'll see why he didn't want to live in his hometown as well. Okay, so Caesar Augustus, that's letter A. Letter B. But Jesus' ministry took place, Luke chapter 3, verse 1. Very interesting verse, actually. So why don't we turn there? Joni, could you please Luke chapter 3 and verse 1, please?
Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, the tetrarch of Bilene.
Yeah, I would only have my favorite read that verse. Okay, that wasn't a punishment. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, next time somebody says, "Oh, the Bible," how do you know the Bible's true? Or well, you really believe it? Just read Luke chapter 3, verse 1, and say, "Go check it out. Go check it out." These were the leaders in the days during the ministry, during the life of Christ, and it's right on target. Accurate. These were the political rulers of his day. So who was the Caesar at this time? His name was Tiberius Caesar. That's letter B. So Jesus' ministry took place during the reign of Tiberius Caesar. Now it says in our book here on page 207, what kind of a man was he? At the very end of that section on the second column there, now we're on page 207. If you go back to page 207. What does it say about Tiberius? When he died in AD 37, what did they say? What did they do? They were ecstatic because what kind of a leader was he? He was described as here's the blank, right from the book. What does it say? Reclusive and reluctant emperor. So you'll need to know that about Tiberius. He was not liked by either the Senate, by the Roman population. He avoided Rome, and it says, he indulged in his own passions of astrology. Here's Caesar Augustus, by the way, at least the statue. That was the best pictures of the rulers of their day, or their statues. Do you think that looked like them? Do you think that's how they look? Why not? And then here's Tiberius Caesar, the reluctant and reclusive leader.
Is that how you look reluctant?
Yeah, he doesn't look that reluctant though. Yeah.
Pastor, I have a question for number 1. It says here the 15th year of Tiberius would be about 29. Is that BC or AD?
I'm sorry, where?
Number 1, right? The 15th year of Tiberius would be about 29.
Oh yeah, that would be AD. Right. Yeah, that's definitely a misspelling. Thank you. Not AC. AC. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if
Yeah.
BC.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the rule of Rome. Now the politics of Palestine from 4 BC to AD 41. So who was the king? His name was the king of this region now. His name was Herod the Great. So that's number 1. They're Herod the Great. Herod died, though, in 4 BC. Now this is important. His kingdom was divided amongst his 3 sons. And we'll see what happens. Now, who was Herod the Great? What do we know him as? If you go back to Luke chapter 1, verse 5, Luke chapter 1, verse 5, and there's a lot of different Herods in the New Testament. You read Herod, sometimes you're reading about different Herods. So this is Herod the Great in Luke chapter 1, verse 5, and it says there was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, and so forth. And then goes to John the Baptist, the birth of John the Baptist story. So that's Herod the Great in Luke chapter 1, verse 5. But it's this Herod who said, when Jesus Christ was born, where is he that was born king of the Jews? It was this Herod that was despotic and very erratic and paranoid and killed everybody around him. And it was this king who slaughtered the babies in Bethlehem. And he died in 4 BC. He really wasn't so great, actually. So Herod the Great. He died in 4 BC. When he died, his kingdom was divided amongst his 3 sons. His 3 sons are Archelaus, Herod Antipas, there's another Herod, and Philip. Okay, so now let's look at these 3. Archelaus. How long did Archelaus rule?
Okay.
2 years. Where did he rule? So if you look at this next map on page 102. So Herod's kingdom was divided when he died amongst his 3 sons. Archelaus was given where? What does it say on that map? The orange, which is Samaria and Judea. So Archelaus was given the region of the temple, Jerusalem, the heart of Israel. What kind of a person was Archelaus? He was the worst. He was the worst. It says in your book on page 209, in the middle of that top section there, he was oppressive and brutal in his policies, and people opposed him so much that he had him removed. That's why he only ruled for 2 years. He's mentioned 1 time in the New Testament. Okay, so make sure you get in the blanks here. Number 2 is who? Archelaus. Letter A, he was given the regions of where? Judea. So that's the blank there. He was given the regions of Judea and Samaria and Idumea. That's the region of the Edomites. The Idumeans were the Edomites. He only ruled for 2 years because his policies were so oppressive that Tiberius had to remove him. And this is going to be key to where Jesus is going to be raised. Because if you look in Matthew chapter 2 and verse number, this is your memory verse actually. Or no, it's not your memory verse. It's next to the memory verse, I think. Memory verse is Matthew 2:23. This is Matthew 2:22. If you look there, and Ellie, could you read that, please? Matthew 2:22. Okay, I'm sorry, and let me give you a background. This is after Jesus had been born. And what happened after he was born? They fled to Egypt because the babies in Bethlehem were going to be killed. So in a dream, Joseph was told to go to Egypt. And we'll actually look at that when we get into the life of Christ. But as we're looking generally at his world, so now he's coming back. The angel tells him in a dream, arise, go back into the land of Israel. That's in verse 20. Verse 21, he took the young child and his mother. He came into the land of Israel. So now he's going to come back into Israel. Where's he going to go? His home is Bethlehem. But verse 22, Ellie, could you please read that?
But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee.
And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. He is despised and rejected of men. So he decides not to go back to his home area of Bethlehem, where Jesus had been born, when he had gone there for the taxing, because of Archelaus. And so this is consistent with history. It's consistent with Archelaus's temperament and oppressive policies. And it's also a fulfillment of the scripture in general that Jesus Christ would be called of the lowest of the low, a Nazarene. So he is mentioned only in Matthew 2:22, Archelaus. This is the only time he's mentioned in the New Testament. And it's in the explaining that Joseph and Mary would not resettle in Judea while this tyrant ruled. Instead, he went to Galilee, settled there in Nazareth. Galilee was the region of Antipas's rule. So there's a couple things there about Archelaus. He began his rule with the suppression of a riot in Jerusalem. That's not in the Bible, that's in history. He began his rule with the suppression of a riot. This established a pattern of bloodshed, confusion, and opposition to him. His only redeeming feature during his brief reign was a considerable number of building operations. Letter E, his oppressive and brutal rule provoked such opposition among the Jews that Augustus removed him for incompetence in AD 6. Yeah, that would be Augustus Caesar. Not I said Tiberius earlier. That would be Augustus. He was still a Caesar at that time.
Also, can I ask you about dates?
Yes.
I'm just wondering. So let's say on page 4, for number 1 here at the grade 37 BC to 4 BC. Is that I don't know how to read BC and AD. So yeah. Is that like the total reign, the total year of their when they reigned, they ruled, or is it was they born until they die?
Okay, so are you on? You're saying point number 2, letter A, from 27 BC to 14 AD, or is that what you said?
Yeah, page 4,
Page 4, A1.
Number 3, A1. Like you say,
Yes.
37. So is that
37
from rule?
BC to 4
BC, so-
BC.
So
Yes.
he ruled-
Now again, and I'm not going to argue with the book on the dating of Christ's birth, because I don't know how to get into that myself. So we would think that I believe he's saying that Jesus Christ was born in 4 BC. In other words, before Christ. But I'm not certain about all the datings.
Yeah.
So I'm just going. But that would be his term of rule.
Okay, so number 2, Archelaus. It's
Now, this is, by the way, if you look, sorry, to answer this question,
okay.
look on page 207. There's the chart here. So this is the chart I'm using. So Herod the Great, you see it says dates of his reign from 37 to 4 BC. I'm using those dates.
So
And same thing with Archelaus.
So how is that 2 years from 4 BC to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that right. That would not be 2 years. That would be 10. So it's 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry.
the date. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was wrong. Thank you.
So it
4
goes down,
BC to 6 AD would be like 10 years. Yeah.
so it's like 4, 3, 2, 1. And then
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
0, okay.
4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Or maybe 11 years, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So 4 BC, it would be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't think they had a 0 though. Nobody had a 0 year, right? It went from, because it was dating. It was us dating it backwards, right?
Right.
Yeah, they didn't date it that way. They didn't say, okay, this is this is the Roman calendar. But again, some of you could figure that out. I'm not sure why, because obviously Herod, he ruled until 4 BC, but obviously Christ was born, right, when he was ruling. So they're saying that Jesus was born BC. I'm not sure why. That I just don't know, honestly. Does anybody know? Does anybody know those things? Those kind of. Okay. So I'm just going to stick with the dates though in the book, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was just
Okay,
wondering about
yeah,
that
okay.
2 years.
Did-
I was trying
Oh,
to-
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I made a mistake on that. Thank you for asking. Thank you so much.
Pastor, what year would it be considered the year of his crucifixion?
Again, there's different dates I've heard. I've heard, I don't know, 30,
They say 80, 30, I heard.
30, 30. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly.
Would that be BC then? Do they AD
No.
after his death and
Oh.
it counts as one after that, or?
No, definitely he died in AD, like
Yeah.
30 AD or, 33 AD, somewhere around in there.
Would he
But-
have been day of his crucifixion 33 BC, would you say?
No.
Does that
No,
make
AD.
sense?
BC is before Christ, AD.
No, if he was
But
on
if
4,
4 BC is
29.
already.
Oh, I see. I see. Right, when,
I'm trying to figure out.
20, 29, 80.
I guess he would probably say, because Jesus was 33 or so when he
Right.
died, right?
Right.
So
29,
maybe he would say it would be 29
28,
AD, somewhere around there.
yeah.
But this isn't a class on datings, it's a
Yeah.
class on geography, so I'm just gonna stick with these dates, because we'll have another class on dates if you want. I'll study that one out later. I don't have time to study the dates. I'm trying to do the geography. That's okay. We'll stick with one thing at a time. But all right.
Most historians don't agree, like, on dating.
I'm sorry, Melissa.
I think it's just because most historians don't agree on dating. So that's
Exactly
like-
true. I mean, there is a lot of debate about it,
Yeah, like they can't ever agree on what AD means versus BC, and then when it starts and when it ends. And then there's like some historians that believe there's like this gap for Jesus's life that's like not AD and it's not BC, so it's just kind of like it's probably better to just stick with the book
Yeah.
because it's crazy.
Okay, so let's just take another couple minutes here and mention number 2, Herod Antipas. Now, he is a major figure in the Bible. Whereas Archelaus did go off the scene quickly and is mentioned only once. Herod is mentioned upward to 20 times in the Gospels. So Herod received Galilee and Perea as an area to rule up here in the purple. Galilee and Perea over here. So this was Herod's jurisdiction. Remember when Jesus was on trial and Pilate heard that Herod was in Jerusalem, he says, oh, Jesus is from your area, which was Galilee. So that's why. So it's this Herod, though, who Jesus calls what? In Luke chapter 13, verse 31, Jesus got a little political sometimes. What did he call Herod in Luke chapter 13, verse 32? A what?
Fox.
He called him that fox. Tell that fox. It is this man who had John the Baptist arrested and killed. It was this man who divorced his wife in favor of Herodias, his half-brother's wife. Herodias, Herodias. Herodias. And that would be what, Matthew? Is that in Matthew 14? And verse number. So Herod got, I'm sorry, John the Baptist got political in his preaching against the sins of the king, of his adultery and his fornication. And Herod had him bound for Herodias' sake. Seemed like she had some control over him. And then had John the Baptist condemned, and it was Herod who had his head cut off after a dance. Like I heard a Baptist preacher say, I don't go to dances because John the Baptist had his head cut off. That's why.
Pastor, what does the dot fox mean?
That. No, I said that. T-H-A-T.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Filipino tongue.
Oh,
What
yeah.
does that mean?
I mean, he just said he's a fox. He's a
And-
sneaky, sly man. You can't trust him. He's untrustworthy. He's evil. I mean, he had John the Baptist killed just to please his wife. He's an adulterer. So he's a fox. So Pilate had Jesus sent to Herod Antipas during his trial. So those are some of the highlights of Herod Antipas. And then lastly here, Philip. Why don't we just do this one and then we'll be done. Philip that's in Luke chapter 3. He's also mentioned in Luke chapter 3. So really, this is a pretty phenomenal verse when you think about what we're doing here tonight and looking at the world of Christ. Luke chapter 3, verse 1, it has a technical term for the rulers that were put in position after Herod the Great's death, his sons. And so Herod was the tetrarch of Galilee. And we just talked about that. Herod was the tetrarch of Galilee. So it gets the regions right. The Bible's accurate. The Bible's inspired and true. And then it says, and Philip is the tetrarch of, what does it say in Luke chapter 3, verse 1? And then you could write that big word in there. It says, the tetrarch of Iturea and the region of Trachonitis. And it's also in this map. You see the map? And it's up here, Trachonitis. So Iturea is up here around this area of Caesarea Philippi. And actually, there's a picture in your book. Remember what happened in Caesarea Philippi? You know what happened? What famous Bible event where Peter said to Jesus, "Thou art the Christ." It was in Caesarea Philippi. So, and we talked about the patronage system. Philip is in this area. And what's the name of the town? Caesarea Philippi. So he named it after himself, but he named it after Caesar. Caesar's Caesarea Philippi. So he was appointed that region. So notice the regions there, again, of Herod the Great's sons then. And again, what were the name of Herod the Great's sons? Archelaus, Herod Antipas, and Philip. Okay? All right. And we'll stop right there, and we'll pick it up with the...
What's 3/8? Trachonitis? Is it trachonitis?
Trachonitis.